happening that you never would expect, right? Quickly speaking, all the institutions of yesterday are obsolete. You see, a new day is coming. The children's school books are all obsolete. The medicine that we use is all obsolete. The life, sometimes the way we think about life is a lot obsolete now. So a new day, some of the things that are in the church have been discovered to be a little bit off. You understand what I'm saying? So the food we eat has to be reconsidered, right? So there's everything that has to be thought about in a different way. One of the things that helps us to think about is when you begin to understand that the ancient Egyptians discovered something extremely important about 10,000 years ago. They found out that man and the plants and the trees and the flowers are really brothers. They need each other, you see, because when we breathe in oxygen, right? What do we give out? Carbon dioxide. It's a poison gas which if you breathe it long enough, it'll kill you. Now on the other hand, the trees, they take this carbon dioxide, keep the carbon to make trunks of it, and breathe out the oxygen. You understand what I'm saying? So they've actually discovered that the trees and mankind need each other. And when we begin to understand it, then we'll have a whole different appreciation of the process of spring when the buds are coming out and you can smell the flowers and it changes your whole mind. Also, the Egyptians discovered another very interesting thing, that the sap of the plants is very much like the blood in our bodies. The blood in our bodies is used to convey nutrients and oxygen to the cells of our body. The same way that the cells of a plant, they need that sap. You know, everybody say the sap is rising, and then that's when the flowers start to bloom and stuff like that, right? So as a result, that same sap, or the blood of the flowers, has the capacity to bring in nutrients and oxygen to the blood, to the cells of our body. Just take a little bit of some of these oils and it'll transform you real quick. For example, this brother right here, speak for a minute, just say a little something about, I just met him today, I don't know him, I didn't set him up, he just, go ahead.
I had heard about aromatherapy and I had a slight headache when I came in. And so he gave me some oils here to put on the smell, and the headache is gone.
I'm telling you,
so,
30 seconds, man. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I definitely.
And then how do you feel now?
I feel calm.
Yeah, see, we're all under such stress and strain. You know, sometimes you're wearing a weight on your back so tight, your shoulders be up so high that you can't even hear. They cover up your ears. You understand? That's the stress and strain we're in. This will help you to cool out, because it's only cooled out that we're going to make the civilization worth living. We're in a very critical period in the planet today. 85% of the land that grows the food that we eat is mineral deficient. You see, there's 85% of the minerals that we need that we're not getting. These oils provide that missing ingredient. So what I'm saying is we have something here extremely interesting. We have the same kinds of medicine that the ancient Egyptians and the wise men were talking about. Now it says in the Bible where the three wise men brought this magic oil to the Christ child. Remember that? Know what that was? It was myrrh and frankincense. Myrrh and frankincense is just what we have right here in this little bottle right here. This is actually what you allegorically call the blood of the Lamb. Any of you know what the blood of the Lamb is? They didn't teach you that in church, did they? The blood of the Lamb, Aries is the lamb. You ever heard Aries is the ram? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries is the day that spring comes, right? And the blood of the Lamb is the sap that rises when spring comes, where all the plants begin to get blossoms and the flowers begin to smell sweet. You have right here the blood of the Lamb. And if you take a little bit of it and try it on, this sister here tried a little bit, what was your reaction?
It had a very calming effect, you know, kind of sedative-like.
All right.
Very, very soothing.
Yeah. So we don't have much time, so I'm just going to pass this around. Here's what you do. If you can handle it, you just take a little bit, put it on the top of your lip, and take a deep breath and hold it. Now that's the quick treatment. If you had a little extra time, you could rub a little behind each ear and a little on your wrist like that. But I'm going to pass it out to you if anybody wants to take a chance with the blood of the Lamb. You see, now all of these, there are 95 different oils here. And each of them have a fantastic potential to heal. You see, these are not just smell-good oils. These are healing oils. These are live oils. These oils have not been cut. These oils have not been mixed with alcohol or something like that. It's different to have fragrance oils and different to have healing oils. So for those of you that are interested, I'll pass out a little information here. I got just a little bit. Yeah, here, pass out one of these sheets to everybody in the back row there. They'll find that to be interesting. Because you've heard of good vibes and bad vibes, have you? Okay, they've discovered that everything has a vibe. Everything. People have vibes, you know, sickness has vibes, health has vibes, headache has vibes, everything has a vibe. See, so if you look on this sheet here, you'll see that mankind, the human body, has a frequency from 62 to 78 hertz. You're like a radio giving off that energy. And each of these oils has a different frequency. Sickness comes in about 60 to 58 hertz. You see, cancer comes in about 47 hertz. So if your body goes down in the frequency level, you're on your way out the planet. 25 hertz and you're back into the Holy Land. You see, these oils have the capacity to raise your vibratory rate. And so this isn't the theory. That's why we want you to try it. Have some of you been trying some of that oil?
I don't want to be soothed. I want to have energy. You have anything for energy?
Yeah, that brings you energy too. But we have one called energy, NRG, and it definitely gives you the energy. So what we're saying is, very quickly, we have the secret to real health, wealth, and wisdom. Because we're only using 5% of our potential as human beings now, and it's time to wake up. Because that young man right there, when he was born, if you didn't give him cow's milk and a lot of sweets and sugars, and a lot of milk and dead flesh and things like that, he would grow up a giant, you see. How many of you have changed your diet a little bit over the past few years, right? Okay. Now suppose that you never had eaten all that garbage that we all eat. I'm saying I ate it too, you understand? Chickens and ducks and cows and pigs used to jump down my throat like everything else, right? I used to eat candy. I had a pocket full of candy all the way. Peanuts in this pocket here, you know, Mary Jane's in this pocket here, gumballs and everything, you know. See, now my teeth are all messed up. I'm so mad. I used to have such pretty teeth. Because if you eat the foods that destroys your body, then in time you're going to pay for it. Isn't that right? You see? So anyhow, we're talking about oils that can help you to understand what you really need to do to make it into this new world and be running things. You see? There's oils here that for women, for example, that have problems with PMS. There's an oil here called Dragon Time, which will actually help you to go through that period very coolly. There are oils here that if you have kids that are rambunctious, I used to teach the 5th and 6th grade, sometimes those kids were wild, you know what I mean? Especially if you give them a lot of candy. Have you noticed the difference when you give a kids a lot of candy, they get all wild, right? So they have an oil now that we'll call Peace and Calming, which calms down the kids so you can get some classroom taught. They have some oils here that will actually cause you to tune in to your soulmate. I don't know if how many of you have thought about perhaps there's a soulmate around here for you? You've thought about it? Just 1 or 2 people? Well, I got to tell you something. Somewhere on this planet is a person who vibrates really right in sync with you and will make you high just being around them. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, these oils can tune you in to that kind of a thing. It's really amazing. Okay, now at the same time, what you want to do is to understand that you're not going to learn everything in 2 minutes. We are going to be teaching seminars about how to really appreciate this, Matter of fact, we're inviting the president of the company to come here. He'll probably be here in July and give a seminar where he explains all these things to you. He himself was injured when he was a young man and told that he would never walk again. He was in a wheelchair for many years. And then he discovered the plants, how powerful they are, and that's what turned him around. Just like George Washington Carver, you heard of him? What did he do with the plants? He spoke with them. See, funny as it may seem, you can communicate with plants and trees and things like that. If you don't believe it, go in the woods one day when it's quiet, grab yourself a tree and hug it. Hug it for about 5 or 10 minutes, real quiet like, and see, you tell me what happens. I'm not going to tell you because it's amazing what happens. But we don't have time to hug trees around here anymore, do we? We don't have time to sit out by the lake and watch the sunset. We don't have time. We got to be running around here going crazy, right? So what we want to do is bring in a whole new dimension for you to experience for yourself. Where is the oil now? Has anybody got it? Okay. Now you got to let it go, brother, because see, we haven't got much time here now. Get some and leave some. Anybody else want to make an experiment with it? Try it out. Yeah. Take a nice dig. Put it all over your mustache there and take a deep breath, close your eyes and breathe it in. Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is serious, you know. I love that. Frankincense and myrrh. Yeah, yeah. You see? And if I'm not looking, rub a little behind your ears and stuff like that. You really need to put it in 7 different holy places in your body. Behind each ear, inside of each wrist, on your 3rd eye, your crown chakra, and then you breathe it in. And when you do that, and just cool out. But I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen because everybody's going to have a different response, you see? One sister, well, she left her body, you know? Did you know it's possible for the spirit to leave the body at times? Huh? You know that? Okay, that's what happened to her. We had to wake her up and say, hey, come on back. Wait, where'd you go? And she was just smiling and said, peace, brother, just let me alone. Okay, so I'm saying that there's a lot to know about and a very short time to know it in. So at the same time, let me pass out some of this information for those of you that are seriously interested, because I haven't got enough for everybody. Raise your hand if you seriously, look at that. He wants to know. If you seriously want to know, I'll be happy to share it with you. And then we'll be having other meetings where we will come and do the whole 9 yards, because I'm going to have to stop very quickly because I see that the doctor is coming. You didn't get one? All right. Okay, let me see. I got something for everybody. Something somewhere. Okay. Who else wanted one? You wanted one? And you wanted one. Okay. So, now are there any questions that any of you have real quick, because the doctor is coming and I have to stop. Yes.
The gentleman testified to how the oils had helped him with his headache.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what were the exact oils that you gave him for the headache?
I gave him the abundance oil, which is myrrh and frankincense. See, myrrh and frankincense is actually called the ancient all-healing oil that the Egyptians used, right? So it just doesn't have one use for it, you see. Matter of fact, one sister rubbed it on her chest and her sore throat went away in 30 seconds, gone. It shocked her. Oh, wow, you know. And so there are some things that will cause you to clean out really nice. So I'm saying you need to experience some of this before you can understand what I'm saying. Okay, now there's some oils here that there's a mineral essence that the company makes. The mineral essence actually puts the minerals that we need in our body. There are some problems that people have, like they have arthritis, you understand, and he had, you ever hear of a thing called Epstein-Barr syndrome? What is Epstein-Barr syndrome? It's a fatigue. It's a
It's a
fatigue.
yuppie. They call it the yuppie disease.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it causes you to lose all your strength.
Yeah.
And
then
he,
a lot of them had to sue because they didn't believe that it was an actual disease.
Right.
So they had to sue their employees to make them pay them
Right.
compensation for it.
Yeah, well, the vice president, the CEO of this company, used to be the CEO of Sanyo. Any of you ever hear of Sanyo? Sanyo is a multi-billion-dollar Japanese company, and he was the only Caucasian ever to be the CEO of Sanyo. Then, when he was right at the top, making money's mammy, he got the Epstein-Barr syndrome, and he couldn't get out of bed. Now, wouldn't that be a kick in the teeth? Here you are making $10,000 a minute, and you can't get out of bed. So, and I'm saying, for 15 years, he was incapacitated until he ran into the Dr. Young, who founded this company. And Dr. Young, with this mineral essence, helped him to recover his strength. Now, this guy is so, you know, he's a very beautiful guy. You'll see on this thing, I went out to Phoenix, Arizona to meet with these guys, because I want to, yeah. And as we draw this little meeting to a close, yeah, we have another program we're going to be doing here. But at the same time, you have my name, you have my phone number, and you have my address on there. And if you care to, call in and leave your name on my mailing list. Now, all you have to do is dial 753-5700. 753-5700. And then, or my phone number is on all of that papers I gave you to. Call in, leave your name on our mailing list, and I'll notify you when our next meeting is happening, because we really need enough time to start massaging people too. There's always somebody in here that could stand a little serious massage. And if you massage yourselves with these oils, you fly. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'm sorry we don't have any more time, but you know, I appreciate the opportunity to say what I have said.
Somewhere deep in the jungle are living some little men and women. They are our past, and maybe they are our future.
They found a way to do that with an overabundant supply of our ancestors, which they called slaves, and an overabundant supply of land. And they put those two together, along with the technology that we came here with, and engaged what they call slavery, which was started as a business adventure and was never intended to last more than 7 years in the first place. They were rather shocked that it lasted as long as it did. We had a scramble between the Portuguese, the Italians, the Germans, the Russians were over here, and the French and the Dutch and the Danes. But most of us are just familiar with the Portuguese because they mostly monopolized what we call South America. And then the Spanish, they were into Central America. And then we get into the French, who were around the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, Alabama, that sort of thing. And the British, which were into what you would call Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina. Then when you get up to Long Island and Pennsylvania, the Dutch were primarily in charge. And once you pass over into what we call Canada, we get back into the French and the Spanish and the English. But they were basically dividing up the slave trade amongst themselves, and they were fighting each other at sea over our ancestors, and had many slave rustlers and pickaninny rustlers. Pickaninnies are the wild pigs that eat the roots of plants that are kind of epidemic in Georgia. They used to call us pickaninnies, which means pigs. I know some of you are familiar with that term. But some of the slave rustlers was Captain Teach, who you call Bluebeard. He made his money off of rustling slaves at sea and on land. And they would brand their slaves in order to identify the particular skill which the slave possessed. So there were certain brands for a silversmith, a blacksmith, a carpenter, along with the name of the slave owner, which could have been Smith or something like that. Lord help if the slave master's name was Schwarzenegger. That kind of burned the hell out of you, brand that all on you. But nonetheless, they would brand us to identify things. The average slave sold for about, female, about $800–900. A man sold for about $400, and a child was about $100. That's a healthy slave. Of course, they had the refuge sale and the scramble sale. The refuge sale was composed of slaves that may have had a broken back or broken shoulder or lame in some way, or an infertile female. They sold for like a cheaper price, sort of like Kmart. And then you had the 2-for-1 sales, or 3-for-1 is just how many slaves you could surround with a rope you could buy for $1. And those slaves were primarily used to demonstrate tortures, because they didn't want to lose the economic benefit of a healthy slave, so they would demonstrate their tortures on the healthy slave, tie a rope to one leg and tie a rope to another leg and whip the horse, and the horse would pull the legs apart. Or various things, put you in a barrel and put nails all in a barrel and roll you down the hill, and to demonstrate torture in case you would run away. Because running away from slavery was classified as a mental illness known as the mental illness, wait a minute, Aesthesia Ethiopius was the mental illness that a slave got for being disobedient. That was mental illness. And then there was a mental illness that you would contract if you ran away. The name eludes me right now. But when they would catch you, they weren't locking you up for running away. You were basically caught and locked up for stealing if you were a runaway slave. Because in the Europeans' mind, you had stole yourself. So they would lock you up for stealing yourself. Yeah. Droptomania, yes. Are we ready?
Yeah, we vote. It's real.
Oh, okay, then I can formally start. So that's basically what was going on with these different classifications. Now they still classify us under some certain mental illness names like learning disorders, but all that has the history that goes back to slavery. Anything that the European does is not new. They always repeat themselves because they cannot change. That's only a melanin-dominant specific trait to change. Changing is a melanin-specific thing. You have to have melanin to change. That's why all the changes in history and in architecture and mathematics and navigation, astrology has been introduced by African people, because melanin is specific for change. It helps change. It's a converter of energy. We have conversion phases of energy, which we call metabolism in biology, where the energy is converted and converted, changed, as they call it, which basically means the energy is going back to its original netters, as we call it in Kemetic kind of language. Energy has characteristics, qualities, or what you would call a legbas, deities. These are qualities of God, and energy has quality. And what you call melanin lets the energy go back to its qualities and come back into its original form again, which you call the male and female principle. That's a quality. It's a quality of a man to have a female principle, and it's a quality of a female to have a male principle. These are qualities of energy, which the Europeans call digestion. Because we were primarily educated or miseducated by the Europeans, which I call the Caucasian race, we kind of don't know that much about melanin or energy. But the only thing to study, if you're studying science, is melanin. There is nothing else to study. When you're studying biology, you're studying the melanin center, which is called the nucleus. Biology is the study of the nucleus reaction in the cell. So if you're studying biology, you are studying melanin. And if you're studying chemistry, you're studying the melanin particles, which they call protons, neutrons, electrons, and then there's another energy which we call solitons. Soliton is the energy that energy makes when it's in motion. That's solitons. So when you're studying chemistry, which comes from the word chemi, which means black, you're studying melanin again, because there's nothing else to study but melanin. And so if you have taken the Europeans' science and they have not used the word melanin, then more than likely you have been studying their superstitions, because they really don't have a grasp of this thing called melanin. It's sort of like, well, a melanin is sort of like having a piano, and you can play the piano. And once you put a match to the piano, you can burn it and destroy the molecular structure, as we would call it. And then you couldn't play the piano anymore. But melanin, if the piano is made of melanin, once you burn it, the memory of the piano would be there, and you could still play the piano. Because melanin changes form without changing structure. Everything else, once you change the form, it can't do its original state anymore. But melanin will not change its function. It'll go from one form to another. Just as you have melanin, which you call sunlight. The sun sits in this melanin cloud, which you call the outer space. And it's all black out there. It's all melanin out there. And the whole galaxy is sitting in this melanin gas. But since we study melanin from the Caucasian people, they only study the melanin that they can measure and weigh. So they study melanin crystals. But there's gas melanin, electromagnetic melanin, like that. It comes in various, what we call tribes in African understanding. But the Europeans only study melanin crystals. So the whole galaxy is sitting in this melanin. If you were to leave the Earth's atmosphere, you would end up in black out there. And you would say, why is it black out there when there's the sun out there? It should be all lit up. But it's all in this melanin gas. Then this melanin gas, little clouds pass in and out of your body all the time. And the Europeans have photographed these black clouds passing in and out of your body. More pass out of African people's bodies than any other person's body. In fact, more passes out of African Americans' bodies than any other Africans on this planet. The Europeans went about, when this Lucy thing came about, it was in the magazines of Newsweek or whatever it was, the Europeans said, they went around the world and did over 166 scientific tests on all the Africans all over the world to find out which group had the genetic code closest to Lucy. And they found out it was the African Americans. But they don't tell you all these things. So the melanin clouds pass in and out of your system all the time. So the sun acts on the melanin. What happens is the sun strikes your skin changes the sun to vitamin D. The sun strikes the leaves of the tree, and the leaves of the tree change the sun into oxygen. We are a form of the sun. We transfer sun energy. That's all we're doing. We absorb the sun and we change it to vitamin D, as they tell you. But also this melanin that you have helps you metabolize carbohydrates. It's involved in your digestive process. Now, melanin also, it comes from your pineal gland. And I'm going to show you the pineal gland. I'm going to show you the electromagnetic force above the pineal gland, which is called the eye of Horus. But the pineal gland secretes the melanin, and primarily today, people associate melanin with serotonin and melatonin, which are hormones made by the pineal gland. Serotonin is kind of stimulating, and melatonin is kind of like mellow. It's made in the evening, and serotonin is primarily made during the day. You cannot digest your food without melatonin. Digestion is a female principle. Chewing up the food is a male principle. During the day, you have a serotonin response, which we call Osiris, which is a sympathetic nervous system response, which energizes your body. And the serotonin does that. And it's primarily functioning from 4 a.m. in the morning to 12 noon. And then it stops. That's when it's kind of, you can't have one functioning without the other functioning. That doesn't happen. Both function at the same time, the male and female principle. I don't want to get too overbearing to scientific kind of hoopla, because it's just a bunch of jargon anyway. As long as you have a feel for what I'm saying, that's what you need. You have to feel the spirit of what I'm saying. The words are not that important to me. When I'm teaching, I want a person to get a feel for it. If you get a feel for it, if you can touch the spirit of it, it will guide you the rest of the way. But just to memorize words, that's kind of European kind of thing. That's not going to help you with what I'm talking about. So I'm just trying to, in the process of giving you this information, I'm trying to also help you change stations too, and our understanding of what melanin is about and what digestion is about. The food that we take in our body primarily is passive. Your body has to do everything to it. You have to chew it. Your muscles have to push it down your digestive tract. The food is doing nothing but laying in your body, and your body is doing everything to the food. The food is not active. You're the one acting. When you start acting on this food, you start generating energy, and then you say you're getting energy from the food. It is your reaction to the food that you call energy. It is your reaction to alcohol that you call being drunk. Alcohol gets into the nervous system, and your body has a reaction to it to get rid of it, and people call that getting high, when your body's trying to fight. Like if you take some cocaine or something, your body rushes energy to it to get rid of it, and this rush of energy is what people call getting high. It's a defense reaction of the body. Your body is reacting to what you're putting in it, and that's what the Europeans call digestion. And they lead you to believe that you can eat an orange or apple or banana, and apple and banana becomes part of you. But that it can't be done. That's called splicing the cell is the only way you can do that. All your body does is react to the banana, react to the orange, react to the apple. And this reaction is called vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, that sort of thing. Because you cannot get calcium and magnesium from any source other than the source God put in your body. Your body makes it for you, but you can't get it from any other source. You just stimulate the calcium in your body by the calcium that you take. Like people take a lot of calcium, magnesium from pigs and cattle that you get in Wheaties and mineral-enriched cereals. All of it has the calcium they get from the bones of pigs and cattle and those sort of animals. Whenever you see enriched flour, that's coming from pigs and cattle. Enriched Wheaties, enriched corn, enriched grits, that's coming from pigs and cattle. Basically, that's pork. In other words, they use pork to make things enriched. That's what I'm trying to say. They use pork to make white sugar. They use pork to make enriched flour. They use pork. They use the bones of animals to stimulate the calcium in your system. And when you do that, the body becomes acid. And so actually, the enriched flour causes your bones to deteriorate quicker than flour that's not enriched, because you're adding this calcium from an acidic source, which is not a plant source. So the melanin is involved in these reactions, what we call conversion reactions. It regulates the time. Did you become adult? Did you become a man? Did you go to sleep? Did your hair grows? It regulates the absorption of sound in your ear. You absorb more sound in your ear because you have a higher melanin content in your ear than any other race, so you hear different from any other race. You see differently from any other race. Your mineral content, because of the melanin, it bonds more minerals to your bones, so African people have the highest mineral content in their bones than any other race. The Caucasian people teach you that underneath your skin all of us are the same, but that is a lie. We are different from the skin to the blood to the muscles to the bone. We are treated as Europeans when we go into a hospital. We're treated by their biochemical makeup. But since we are number 6 as far as melanin is concerned, as far as nutrient concentration is concerned, we're number 6. And then you get into the Puerto Ricans and Mexicans, they are number 5. And then you're going down and down to number 1, which is the Europeans, or the Caucasian race. Now, we're at number 6, and they're number 1. So according to their biological tests that they run, normal is number 1. So when you drop all the way down to number 1, they say you're normal, but you are sick. And then you drop below that number 1, then they say you're sick, but then you're twice as sick. And that's why our rate of disease is always twice as high. Because they're not assessing the melanin. They never diagnose you for melanin deficiencies. When your body starts pulling the melanin from your skin and you get those white spots because you're having a melanin deficiency, your body starts pulling it from the pheomelanin and trying to replace it. And so people get these white spots on their skin, or they start getting these melanin deficiency and they start getting dark streaks in their fingernails. And you say, what's all this melanin doing in here? You know, they just say, oh, just dark lines in your fingernails. Because they don't measure melanin. They do not give you a test for melanin deficiency when you go into a hospital. Why should they? They don't have any themselves, so why should they care about yours? But nonetheless, when you have a melanin deficiency of a hormone called serotonin, you will have what they call obsessive compulsive behavior. That's when you have, I want mine, I want it now, and if I can't have mine, hell with you kind of thing. That's a serotonin deficiency. It causes compulsive behavior. And the Europeans have obsessive compulsive behavior because they have a melanin deficiency. There are signs and symptoms of having a melanin deficiency in all disease states. Just as all diseases have a particular smell that they give off, like cancer has a smell of like a stinky kind of smoke. You see, every disease has a smell. When you have a kidney disease, it's going to have like ammonia smell. Then when you have sugar diabetes, you can have like a sweet smell. Then when you have measles, that's going to smell like feathers, sort of. See, each disease carries a smell, carries an emotional state, carries a melanin state, like that. So it's a certain thought process that you'll have if you have like a prostate disease. There's emotion attached to that. There's emotion attached to having a fibroid tumors and having prostate disease. Each disease carries a mineral deficiency, a melanin deficiency, a vitamin deficiency. It's according to who's looking at it. If a chemist looks at it, he'll say, this is what's happening. If a geneticist looks at it, he'll say, this is what's happening with the genes. Because each person is looking at it through the eyes of their science. And they divide it up like that. And so you get kind of confused. You say, well, what in the hell do I have? You see. It's sort of like, it's sort of like teenage pregnancy. Then you have violence. Then you have learning disorders. Then you have poverty, and you say, well, if I get rid of the poverty, it'll get rid of the violence. If I get rid of the violence, they get rid of, and you start connecting all these things together, saying one causes the other. No, no, no. If you have a cold, follow me now. If you have a cold, your nose is running, you have a temperature, you feel a little tired, your stomach hurts. You don't say your stomach hurt caused your nose to ache, caused your nose to run, your nose run caused the headache, the fever. No. All of those are symptoms of a cold. Poverty, black on black crime, teenage pregnancy, crack are all signs of white supremacy disease. You cannot have one without the other. You see, but they try to, get you to make these connections to keep you going around America around so you're chasing your behind. We have a little thing about watching our behinds anyway because we got it from the Europeans. We just go around looking at each other's behind to measure our sexual ability. That comes from the European society where everything is kind of measured by the shape of a woman's behind. That's supposed to show you how well she can have sex. So brothers going around looking at women's behind, women looking at men's behind. That comes, see, we got things a little ass backwards. That's what I'm trying to say. And we did the same thing with our science in the same way where we're looking at these symptoms here. Now, children do have melanin deficiencies. Let me give you an example of, we're doing what we call traumatized children who have been traumatized by this in their central nervous system because the nervous system grows like a tree, which we call a notochord. Where your backbone grows, it grows like a tree. And when it's growing, there's no There's no modeling around the nerves. It's rubber around this wire, so if you touch it, you won't get any electrical shock. Well, there's no wire, rubber around the nervous system of children. And so when the father or the mother is taking some kind of synthetic chemical, it goes right into the nerves, and it damages the nerve permanently. Fetal alcohol syndrome is a permanent damage of the nervous system. Just as crack addiction is a permanent damage of the nervous system. Just as hormone addiction is a permanent damage of the nervous system. We're dealing with what we call drugs, and those drugs are isolated, concentrated substances. Isolate the sugar from the sugar cane, you have a drug. Isolate the opium from the plant, you have a drug. The drug is an isolated chemical. No matter what you want to call it, you can call it sugar if you like. But sugar is basically nitroglycerin anyway, and explodes, and that's when you get these little pains and sharp, you have a little twitching. That's the sugar exploding in your nervous system and bones when you feel a little twitch or something like that. I watch people exploding all down the streets up there. But nonetheless, the sugar is a chemical. Just as sodium chloride is a chemical. It will kill you stone dead if you eat it by itself. But the Europeans have got us all looking at these things backwards here. If you look at it and you can't identify where it came from, and it don't have no smell, more than likely you're dealing with a chemical. You can look at some white sugar and can't tell me what plant it came from. It has no life characteristic. It is a chemical. Now, how you define a chemical and how you define what is natural is kind of easy. If it's a natural food or substance, you can eat it all day and will not get sick. If it's a chemical, you try eating it all day and you will have some problems. Eat a bowl of salt for breakfast, put a little sugar on it, milk, and see what happens. Eat a bowl of salt for lunch. Eat a bowl of salt for dinner. You will be very, very sick. Because salt is not a food, but if it was a food, you could eat it all day, no problem. You can eat a bowl of apples in the morning, bowl of apples at lunch, because it's a food. It won't hurt you. But when you get into these chemicals, you're going to have some problems. Especially when you learn it from someone who's gone teaching you the wrong way, which we call the contrary cures opposite system of the Europeans. There's no other way to define this other than when they give you something, they go in the opposite way. If you're having some digestive problems, you're having a little heartburn and all that sort of thing, you say, well, I'm having digestive problems. Your body's trying to produce a lot of acid to break down the food. And the Europeans, what they're going to give you now is something to go the opposite way. So they give you an anti-acid to shut down digestion. Shut it down completely. You're having digestive problems in the first place. That's why your body's producing all this acid to break down this constipated, rotting stuff that's probably in your stomach and all over your body. And they give you something that's going to stop the digestion and go the opposite way altogether. You're trying to get rid of the mucus because it's all in your body, clogging up your head, you're throwing it out your nose, snot's dripping all over the place, you're losing your friends, you got dirty napkins all in your pocket with snot, you're carrying snot all over your body and everything, you know. And what do the Europeans do? Give you a cough suppressant to keep all that snot caked up in your body. You see, whatever they do, they're going to give you something the opposite of what God's trying to get you to do. You should know that by now. Your body's trying to break down impurities. So they're going to give you something that's against life, anti-biological. And they're going to tell you, I'm going to give you an antibiotic. Anti-life. The word itself says anti-biological. Anti-something that is alive. And they give it to you. And we take it. Because the white man can't do nothing wrong. He can't. He's got us taking salt. You know, we put salt in a refrigerator and call it a deodorant. People are brushing their teeth with salt and bleach. Peroxide and baking soda is just salt and bleach. Just because some white boy put his arm on a box of salt with a hammer in it, people are afraid not to use it. I don't understand it. They just tell us these things and they got us doing all these dumb, stupid things because we're out of our African mind and into their mind. We are out of our minds. That's why we eat the way we eat. Now, all the drugs work by slowing up, speeding up, or destroying melanin. There's no other way for a drug to work. That's how Prozac works. It stops melanin reuptake. There is no other way for a drug to work. It has to attack the melanin in some way. And that's what the drugs do. Stopping you from being black. That's a hell of a thing to do. Stopping you from being African, giving you something that's against your ability to be African. Anti-melanin substances. And we slurp it all up. Historically, nothing has changed with our diet since slavery. Maybe you should go back and look at some of these slave records like I do and see that we had fibroid tumors in the 16th century, hemorrhoids. All these diseases we have now, we had it from the beginning when we started eating the Europeans' food. Nothing has absolutely changed. It's very horrible to read those records and see that we're still in the same shape. But nonetheless, we're in the age of what they call modern medicine, which is another word for white man's medicine. Western medicine, which is another word for white man's medicine. There's a way that we can work herbal medicine and modern medicine together. Impossible. The devil and God are not friends. It doesn't work that way. You cannot worship two gods. You either got to worship one or the other. And people that mix Western medicine, which is white man's medicine, with natural African medicine, I can't understand it. But then again, I'm a little radical anyway. Now, when a child has what we call a melanin deficiency, I'll go back to a cracked child so you can get an example of the behavior that we are observing. It's a little milder than a child that's born with hormone addiction. Children born with hormone addiction are a little more, the mood swings are a little more explosive. But you can tell a child that has some sort of drug dependency when they're born by, they will yawn more than normal. They will sneeze more. They will have defensive positions. You will pick them up and they will stiffen their legs or throw up their arms. This is a defense reaction of an infant when you pick it up. But we think it's normal now because all the children are acting like this. But when you pick them up and they stiff their legs, that's known as a defense reaction. Or they do the hands like this, or they do the hands like this. That's all defensive reactions of a child who has chemical addiction. They cannot make transitions very easy. They'll start crying and cannot stop because they can't move into crying very easily and they can't move out of crying very easily. They have problems with all transitions of thought, transitions of color. They have problems with it. And the only way to kind of communicate with a child that has these chemical deficiencies is you got to prepare everything that you do. That's why the children like cartoons so well, because the line will be angry and it will prepare the child for its anger by moving slower like that and changing its face, and then it will say something angry. And so the child can very easily follow cartoons. But when, we as adults, when we speak to them, we'll say something, I don't like what you did, but we never prepared our body to make a move so they can make the transition with us. So then you throw the child into what we call spasm. They have what we call confusion spasm. They'll just be doing something playful and then a confusion will strike them like that and they'll be confused for just a minute. And they don't know anything about confusion, so they get irritated and agitated. So they just may grab something and just throw it and break it. And you say, why'd you break that? Because they just went through a confusion spasm. We don't understand all of these things because we read books about normal children. But that's over. That's over. That's over. When you're dealing with a chemically addicted child, sometimes you cannot put them on the back because that's too stressful. You have to either rest them on the side or on the stomach, and then you may have to rock them. And if they get too irritated and start screaming and everything, you have to swaddle them, wrap them in cloth and bind them. Because they only feel secure when they bind it like in their mother's stomach. So you have to wrap them in cloth and rock them, and then the child will calm down. But a person not used to addicted child will just grab them and that's too much attention. Because their nervous system, as I mentioned before, wasn't covered, so it's not fully developed. So now you can't give them too much attention because that stresses their system. Normal things that you do will stress the living hell out. You look them in the eye, and you see them looking away from you. You say, look in my eye when I'm talking to you. They can't look you in the eye because it's too stressful, and you're trying to force them to do it. They can't handle that. That's too much of an overload on the nervous system. Little things. They're getting punished for a chemical crime that was committed upon them by the Caucasian people. Then we're not aware of what's going on. You cannot have the music too loud. You can't have bright colors around them. You have to talk soft, and they read emotions quite well. You got to be emotionally straight with them because they can read your emotion before they can read what you're saying. They're very sharp, and they usually cry almost up to about a fifth higher than regular children. They have a higher pitch to their cry. But we